The Eighth Habit, From Effectiveness to Greatness, by Stephen R. Covey. Introduction. He was a university professor, teaching the elegant, complex theories of economics. Every day, he would walk into his classroom in Bangladesh, a brand new PhD from the United States, filled with enthusiasm for the models and charts that were supposed to explain the world. But every day, when he walked out of that classroom, the real world would hit him like a physical blow. All around him, he saw skeletons. People, waiting to die in the middle of a famine. He felt a terrible disconnect. The theories he taught felt like make-believe stories, meaningless in the face of such profound human suffering. So, he decided to do something different. He abandoned the bird's-eye view of an academic and adopted what he called a worm's-eye view. He walked into the village next to his university, determined to see if he could help, even just one single person. There, he met a woman making beautiful bamboo stools. He talked with her for a long time and discovered something that shocked him to his core. For all her hard work, she was making only 2 US pennies a day. How could this be possible? She explained that she didn't have the money to buy the bamboo herself. She had to borrow it from a local trader, who then forced her to sell the finished stools back to him at a price he decided. She was trapped in bonded labor. The professor, Muhammad Yunus, asked her how much the bamboo cost. Her answer stopped him in his tracks. "Oh, about 20 cents, she said. 20 cents. A human life was being crushed for the lack of 20 cents. He felt ashamed to be part of a society where this could happen. So, he took a student and walked through the village, making a list of everyone trapped in this same cycle. They found 42 people. The total amount of money they all needed? $27. In that moment, a quiet voice inside him spoke, a voice of conscience that would change not only his life, but the lives of millions. He reached into his own pocket, pulled out $27, and gave it to his student. "Give this to them," he said. "Tell them it's a loan. They can sell their products to whomever they want, and pay me back when they are able." That small act, born from a moment of profound pain and a whisper of conscience, was the beginning of the Grameen Bank and the microcredit movement that has since lifted millions out of poverty worldwide. Muhammad Yunus didn't start with a grand vision. He started by finding his voice in the act of serving one person's need. This story is the heart of what we're going to explore today. It comes from the brilliant mind of Stephen R. Covey, the legendary author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, a book that has sold over 15 million copies and transformed the way we think about success. But in 1989, the same year that book was published, the world changed. The Berlin Wall fell, and a new era was born: the information age, the age of the knowledge worker. Covey realized that in this new world, just being effective wasn't enough anymore. It was the price of entry, but it wasn't the final destination. There was a higher level, a new dimension required to truly thrive. The world was calling for greatness. And so, he gave us the 8th habit. Today, we are going on a journey from effectiveness to greatness. I promise you that by the end of our time together, you will understand the one fundamental shift in thinking that separates those who live a life of quiet frustration from those who live a life of profound contribution and fulfillment. You will discover the path to finding your own unique voice, and how to inspire others to find theirs. This isn't just another habit, it's the key that unlocks all the others in a world that demands more of us than ever before. Book summary. Have you ever felt stuck? Like you're in a rut, just going through the motions? Maybe you feel like your boss has no idea what you're truly capable of, or that your life is missing a sense of meaning. You're not alone. These are the quiet, painful voices of millions of people in today's world, people who feel frustrated, undervalued, and uninspired. Stephen Covey opens the eighth habit by having us listen to these voices, because he says that this deep, personal pain is the most universal experience in the modern workplace. He once asked a massive audience, "How many of you agree that the vast majority of people in your organization have far more talent, intelligence, and creativity than their jobs require or even allow?" Almost every hand in the room went up. Think about that. We live in a world that demands we produce more for less, yet most organizations are systematically shutting down the very talent and intelligence they need to survive. It's a paradox that creates a silent crisis of fulfillment. So, what is the root of this problem? Covey argues that it's not a new problem at all, but an old one that has become dangerously outdated. To understand it, we have to take a quick step back in time. Imagine for a moment you're a hunter-gatherer. Your entire life is dedicated to finding food for the day. Then, someone comes along and starts scratching the earth, planting tiny seeds. You watch them for weeks, seeing nothing. You think they're crazy. But then, a harvest comes, and this farmer produces 50 times more food than you, the best hunter in your tribe. To compete, you can't just hunt harder. You need a completely new mindset, a new skill set, a new tool set. Over time, 90% of hunter-gatherers had to become farmers or they became obsolete. Generations pass. Then comes the industrial age. Factories rise up, producing 50 times more than the family farm. Again, a new mindset, new skills, new tools are required. And again, 90% of farmers are eventually downsized from the workforce. Covey says we are in the middle of another one of these monumental shifts right now. We have moved from the industrial age into the information age, or what he calls the knowledge worker age. And the potential productivity leap is just as massive, not 2 times, not 10 times, but potentially 10,000 times more productive. But here's the core problem. The source of all that pain we talked about. We are living in a knowledge worker world, but our organizations are still being run by the rules of the industrial age. In the industrial age, the main assets were machines and capital, things. People were necessary, but they were seen as replaceable cogs in a machine. You didn't need their mind, their heart, or their spirit. You just needed their hands. So, you could manage people like you manage things. This gave us the carrot and stick philosophy of motivation, reward and punishment. It gave us accounting systems that list people as an expense on a spreadsheet, while machines are listed as assets on the balance sheet. It created a mindset of control. The problem is, this control model is still the dominant one in most workplaces today. But knowledge workers aren't things. When you treat a creative, intelligent person like a thing, you insult them. You alienate them. You shut down their potential. Covey illustrates this perfectly with the story of Max and Max. It's a fictional tale about Max, a brilliant hunting dog, and Max, a passionate new customer service rep. Their boss, Mr. Harold, manages his employee the same way he manages his dog, with strict commands, micromanagement, and a wait-until-told attitude. The human Max starts his job full of fire and initiative. But every time he tries to be creative to help a customer, Mr. Harold shoots him down. Just follow the rules, Max. Over time, his spirit is broken. He loses his passion, his vision, and his voice. He becomes just like the dog, Max, passively waiting for his next command, afraid to take any initiative at all. This, Covey says, is the silent tragedy playing out in offices, schools, and even homes all over the world. It's a codependent cycle. Managers control, so employees become passive, which then convinces the managers they need to control even more. So, how do we break this cycle? How do we move from the pain of the industrial age model to the promise of the knowledge worker age? Covey says it requires a paradigm shift as profound as the discovery of the germ theory was to medicine. Before germ theory, doctors practiced bloodletting, believing the bad stuff was in the blood. No matter how much they tried to improve bloodletting, they were working with a flawed map. Once they understood that tiny, invisible germs were the real cause of disease, everything changed. Our flawed map is the way we see people. The industrial age gave us a map of a partial person, just a body and a pair of hands. The new map, the one for the knowledge worker age, is what Covey calls the whole person paradigm. It's a simple but revolutionary idea. Human beings are not things. We are four-dimensional. We have a body, a mind, a heart, and a spirit. And each of these four parts has a corresponding need. The body's need is to live, our need for survival, for physical and economic well-being. The mind's need is to learn, our need for growth and development. The heart's need is to love, our need for connection, for belonging. And the spirit's need is to leave a legacy, our need for meaning, purpose, and contribution. Here's where it all comes together. When we go to work, we make a choice, consciously or not, about how much of ourselves we are willing to give. That choice depends entirely on how we are treated. Covey asks us to consider a few scenarios. What if you're not paid fairly? Your body is neglected. Would you give your best? Likely not. You'd probably do just enough to not get fired. What if you're paid fairly, but not treated with kindness and respect? Your heart is neglected. You might comply, but you won't be committed. What if you're paid fairly and treated kindly, but your ideas are never asked for? You're just told what to do. Your mind is neglected. You'll probably be bored and disengaged. And what if you're paid fairly, treated kindly, and your mind is used, but the work itself feels meaningless, or you're asked to do something that goes against your conscience? Your spirit is neglected. You might obey, but it will be what Covey calls malicious obedience. You'll do it, but secretly hope it fails. It's only when an organization engages the whole person, fair pay for the body, respectful treatment for the heart, creative use of the mind, and a sense of purpose for the spirit, that we unlock the highest levels of human motivation, heartfelt commitment, and creative excitement. This is the solution. This is the key to moving beyond mere effectiveness. This is the 8th habit, to find your voice and inspire others to find theirs. So, what exactly is your voice? Covey presents it as a beautiful intersection of 4 circles. Your voice lies at the nexus of 1. Talent, your natural gifts and strengths. 2. Passion, the things that naturally energize and excite you. 3. Need, a need in the world that you can meet. 4. Conscience, that still, small voice within that tells you what is right and prompts you to act. When the work you do taps into your talent, fuels your passion, meets a great need, and is guided by your conscience, that is where you find your voice. It's your unique, personal significance. It's your soul's code. The story of Muhammad Yunus is a perfect example. He saw a need, poverty, was moved by his conscience to help, used his talent, his understanding of economics, and in doing so, discovered a lifelong passion. He found his voice. The rest of the book, then, is a roadmap for this journey. Covey divides it into 2 parts. The first is the inner journey, finding your voice. This journey begins by understanding the 3 magnificent birth gifts that we all possess, though they often remain unopened. The first and most powerful gift is the freedom to choose. Covey tells a story of a life-changing moment he had in a library. He read a sentence that struck him to his core: between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and power to choose our response. In those choices lie our growth and our happiness. This is a profound idea. We are not a product of our genes or our environment. They influence us, certainly, but they do not determine us. No matter what happens to you, whether it's a difficult boss, a tough childhood, or a challenging circumstance, there is always a moment, a space, where you can choose how you will respond. This power to choose is what makes us human. It means we are not victims. We are the creative force of our own lives. The second birth gift is natural laws or principles. These are universal, timeless truths that govern the world, just like gravity. Principles like fairness, integrity, honesty, and service. You can't break these laws, you can only break yourself against them. Values, on the other hand, are personal. A criminal has values. The key is to anchor our values in correct principles. Covey uses the metaphor of a compass. Principles are true north. They never change. Wisdom is learning to live our lives in harmony with them. The third birth gift is our four intelligences, which correspond to the four parts of our nature. For the mind, we have mental intelligence, our IQ. For the body, we have physical intelligence, our PQ, the incredible, unconscious wisdom of our body that runs our systems and heals itself. For the heart, we have emotional intelligence, our EQ, our self-awareness, empathy, and social skills. And for the spirit, we have spiritual intelligence, our square, our drive for meaning and our connection to universal principles. This, Covey argues, is the highest intelligence, because it guides the other three. Once we understand these gifts, the next step is to express our voice. This is where we cultivate the highest manifestations of our four intelligences. From our mind IQ, we cultivate vision. Vision is seeing with the mind's eye what is possible. It's applied imagination. As Albert Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Vision allows us to see the potential in ourselves, in others, and in projects. From our body PQ, we cultivate discipline. Discipline is the price we pay to make vision a reality. It's not about a lack of freedom. In fact, Covey says, only the disciplined are truly free. The undisciplined are slaves to moods, appetites, and passions. From our heart EQ, we cultivate passion. Passion is the fire, the desire, the conviction that sustains discipline to achieve the vision. It's the fuel that keeps you going when everything else tells you to quit. And from our spirit square, we cultivate conscience. Conscience is our inner moral sense of right and wrong. It is the guiding force for our vision, discipline, and passion. Covey makes a brilliant point here. He says that vision, discipline, and passion are the three attributes that have ruled the world, for good or for ill. George Washington had them. Nelson Mandela had them. But so did Adolf Hitler. What was the difference? Hitler's vision, discipline, and passion were driven by his ego. Gandhi's were driven by conscience. When conscience governs, leadership endures and changes the world for good. Without it, it ultimately fails. This completes the inner journey of finding our voice. But the eighth habit has a second, equally important part: inspiring others to find theirs. This is the journey of leadership. But Covey redefines leadership in a powerful way. Leadership is not a position. It's a choice. It is the choice to communicate to people their worth and potential so clearly that they come to see it in themselves. It's about breathing life into another person. When we move into the world of organizations and teams, we run into those four chronic problems that stem from the old industrial age paradigm. 1. Low trust, the problem of the spirit. 2. No shared vision, the problem of the mind. 3. Misalignment, the problem of the body. 4. Disempowerment, the problem of the heart. The solution to these four problems lies in what Covey calls the four roles of leadership. These are not roles for a CEO. They are roles anyone can play, from any position, to expand their influence. The first role is modeling. This is the antidote to low trust. Modeling is about being an example of trustworthiness. You can't have trust without trustworthiness, and trustworthiness is made up of two things: character and competence. Character includes your integrity, maturity, and what Covey calls an abundance mentality, the belief that there's enough for everyone. Competence includes your skills and knowledge. The 7 habits are, in essence, the habits of character that build the foundation for modeling. But the most powerful part of modeling is being what Covey calls a trim tab. A trim tab is the tiny rudder on a massive ship that turns the big rudder, which in turn turns the whole ship. It's a metaphor for how one person, with no formal power, can initiate change that moves an entire organization by working within their circle of influence. The second role is pathfinding. This is the antidote to a lack of shared vision. Pathfinding is about creating a shared sense of purpose and direction. This isn't about the leader announcing a vision from on high. It's about involving people in the process of deciding what matters most. Covey tells a story about a little kid's soccer game where all the kids just chase the ball in a giant clump. He calls it magnet ball. It's a funny but perfect analogy for most organizations. Everyone is busy and working hard, but they have no clear idea of the goal or their position on the field. Pathfinding creates that clarity and order without demanding it. The third role is aligning. This is the antidote to misalignment. It's about creating structures and systems that support the shared vision. This is where the rubber meets the road. You can talk about cooperation all day long, but if your compensation system rewards internal competition, you'll get competition every time. Covey tells a story about a CEO who couldn't understand why his managers wouldn't cooperate. Meanwhile, behind the CEO's desk was a chart of a horse race, with each manager's face on a horse, all competing for a trip to Bermuda. Your systems will always trump your rhetoric. Alignment means you water what you want to grow. You institutionalize your values. The fourth and final role is empowering. This is the antidote to disempowerment. Empowerment is the fruit of the other 3 roles. When you have high trust from modeling, a shared vision from pathfinding, and helpful systems from aligning, you can finally release the talent and passion of your people. This isn't about just abandoning people and calling it empowerment. It's about creating what Covey calls a win-win agreement. This is a psychological contract where you agree on the desired results and the guidelines, but you leave people free to use their own creativity and methods to achieve those results. You focus on the what, not the how. You manage things, but you lead people. Covey tells a powerful story about a group of janitors. Their supervisor was taught the principles of empowerment and decided to try an experiment. Instead of just telling the janitors what to do, he involved them in planning their own schedules, testing and choosing their own cleaning supplies, and even evaluating their own work. What happened? Quality went up, turnover went way down, and this group of so-called manual workers became a highly motivated, self-managed team of knowledge workers. They found their voice, even in the most seemingly menial of jobs. This brings us to the ultimate synthesis of the book. Covey argues that all of these ideas can be summarized in 2 words: focus and execution. Focus is the work of modeling and pathfinding. It's about answering the question, what matters most? Execution is the work of aligning and empowering. It's about answering the question, how do we make it happen? The failure to execute is the great unaddressed issue in most organizations today. To solve this, Covey introduces the 4 disciplines of execution, 4DX. This is a simple, practical framework for any team to get results. Discipline 1. Focus on the wildly important. Don't get lost in the whirlwind of urgent but unimportant tasks. Identify the 1 or 2 goals that, if you achieve them, would make all the difference. These are your wildly important goals, or WIGs. Discipline 2. Create a compelling scoreboard. People play differently when they're keeping score. Create a simple, visible scoreboard that shows everyone where you are, where you need to be, and by when. Discipline 3. Translate lofty goals into specific actions. The leaders might know the goal, but the people on the front line need to know what they should do differently this week to achieve it. Break the goal down into concrete, daily and weekly actions. Discipline 4. Hold each other accountable, all of the time. Meet regularly, at least once a week, for a quick session where each person holds themselves and each other accountable for moving the scoreboard forward. In the end, Covey brings us back to the ultimate purpose that drives this entire journey. The pinnacle of the 8th habit is not just about personal fulfillment or organizational success. It's about using our voices wisely to serve others. It's about moving into what he calls the age of wisdom, where our knowledge is guided by purpose and principles. It's the realization that true greatness is not about what we get, but what we give. It's the discovery that Muhammad Yunus made on that lonely village path, that Nelson Mandela made in his prison cell, that Gandhi made on that train platform. It's the understanding that life is not a career, but a mission. And that in the act of serving others, in the quiet fire of sacrifice and contribution, we find not only our own voice, but we find the very best of ourselves. Commentary. When you step back and look at the 8th habit, you realize it's so much more than just a business book. It's a book about what it means to be human in the 21st century. What I find most powerful about Stephen Covey's work is its timelessness. The idea of the whole person paradigm, body, mind, heart, and spirit, isn't a new management fad. It's an ancient truth, a pattern you can find in philosophies and wisdom traditions from all over the world. What Covey did so brilliantly was to translate that timeless wisdom into a practical, actionable framework for our modern lives. The world has only accelerated since he wrote this book. The pressures of the knowledge worker age are more intense than ever. We're bombarded with distractions, facing constant change, and the feeling of being a cog in a machine is an epidemic. That's why the central message of this book is more urgent today than it has ever been. The single most empowering idea, for me, is the redefinition of leadership. The thought that leadership is a choice, not a position, is profoundly liberating. It means that no matter where you are in an organization's hierarchy, no matter what your title is, you have the power to be a trim tab. You can choose to be a source of light, not a judge. A model, not a critic. You can choose to expand your circle of influence by focusing on contribution rather than complaint. This idea hands the keys of change back to every single individual. It tells us that we don't have to wait for our boss or our organization to change. We can be the change. And that leads to the practical application. How do we start living this? It can feel overwhelming, but Covey's genius was always in making the profound simple. So here are a few small things you can do, starting today, to begin practicing the 8th habit. First, identify one area of your life where you feel the most pain or frustration. It could be at work, at school, or in a relationship. Now, instead of focusing on what's out there that you can't control, ask yourself this simple trim tab question. What is the one thing I can do, within my circle of influence, to make this situation 1% better? Don't try to solve the whole problem. Just be a trim tab. Take one small, proactive step. Second, the next time you find yourself in a disagreement with someone, a friend, a parent, a teammate, try using the principle of the Indian talking stick. Before you make your own point, make a sincere effort to restate their point of view to their satisfaction. Just say, "Let me see if I understand what you're saying." You will be amazed at how this simple act of empathy can dissolve defensiveness and open the door to a real solution. Finally, take 5 minutes today and think about your own voice. Ask yourself those 4 questions. What am I good at? Talent. What do I love doing? Passion. What need can I meet? Need. And what does my conscience tell me is the right thing to do? Conscience. You don't have to have it all figured out. The very act of asking these questions is the first step on the path to finding your voice. That was a summary of The Eighth Habit by Stephen R. Covey. We've journeyed through the core ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. The map can show you the way, but it can't give you the experience of walking the trails, smelling the air, and feeling the sun on your face. The true power of this book is in the stories, the deep reflections, and the way Covey's wisdom speaks to you personally. This summary is meant to show you if this is a journey worth taking. If any part of our conversation today sparked something in you, I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about absorbing information, it's an invitation to a deeper, more fulfilling way of living. A link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you something to think about, please do me a small favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us reach more people who are looking to grow, and it ensures you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.